The number of Iranians killed by the joint attacks launched by U.S. and Israel against the Persian nation has risen to 787, with hundreds of people injured. The people of Venezuela mobilized to demand the release of President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Cilia Flores after 2 months since their kidnapping. In Argentina, human rights organizations denounced the restrictions imposed on former President Cristina FERNANDEZ de Kirchner during her house arrest. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. And the number of Iranians killed by the joint attacks launched by U.S. and Israel against the Persian nation has risen to 787, with hundreds of people injured. According to humanitarian organizations, at least 176 children have been killed and over 620 are still missing as a result of the attacks, while 971 civilians have been reported injured. For its part, Israel's Air Force says it dropped more than 1,200 munitions across 24 of Iran's 31 provinces over the past day in its joint attack with the U.S. On the other hand, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps reported that it has launched attacks on 27 bases in the Middle East where U.S. troops are deployed, as well as Israeli military facilities. So far, Iran has launched retaliatory strikes across 9 countries of the region. On Tuesday, March 3rd, the Iranian representative to the United Nations in Geneva, Ali Bahraini, stated that Tehran will not consider talks with Washington while the foreign offensive continues. The diplomat emphasized that for a change in the current situation, aggression against Iran must end immediately. Similarly, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi reiterated that the United States entered the conflict of its own volition to benefit Israel. In this regard, Araghchi denied the Iranian threat, blaming the bloodshed of those who favor the Israeli agenda. The Iranian foreign minister also alluded to statements by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, which suggested that Washington has acknowledged this operational reality. And in recent hours, more than 10,000 Lebanese civilians have fled to Syria due to intense Israeli bombing, particularly in southern suburbs of Beirut. Renewed attacks have caused a severe congestion at border crossings where thousands of families wait for hours to enter Syria. Due to security concerns, the public relations director of the dated Jabous crossing, Mohammed Al-Qassam, reported that Lebanese authorities are allowing civilians to leave without passport stamps to facilitate transit. To manage the influx, lanes have been opened and staffing increased. Lebanese citizens can only enter Syria if they have family ties, residency, or dual nationality. The civilian population is also facing a mass displacement crisis after the second wave of attacks. Meanwhile, France warned that an Israeli ground incursion into Lebanon would constitute a strategic error and a flagrant violation of international law. President Emmanuel Macron rejected the incursion of Israeli troops into Lebanon and denounced the action of Washington and Tel Aviv against Iran as violating international law. In addition to supporting the sovereignty of the Lebanese authorities in internal security matters, Macron ordered the strategic redeployment of the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier from the Baltic to the Mediterranean. This announcement comes amid an escalation of the Israeli offensive, which has already claimed 52 lives and left 154 injured in Lebanese territory. Also, Russia and China have criticized the U.S. and Israel for their attacks on Iran. Moscow said it had seen no evidence that Tehran was developing nuclear weapons, and Beijing demanded as well an immediate halt to the joint attacks. On Tuesday, China's foreign ministry stated that the attack on Iran came as negotiations between Washington and Tehran had made significant progress, including addressing Israel's security concerns. On Tuesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also criticized the U.S. and Israel, saying that a war on Iran could lead to the very outcome they claim to want to prevent: nuclear proliferation. Lavrov told a news conference that the U.S. and Israel's actions could lead to Iran acquiring a nuclear bomb. And now we have a short break coming up. But first, remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South, and let's go to the United States. Of the nation is threatening to break off trade relations with Spain after the Spanish government refuses to increase military spending to 5% of GDP. U.S. President Donald Trump stated that he does not want to have a relationship with Spain, questioning the European nation's level of participation in NATO. He declared that it was the only country in the international organization that did not agree to increase its military spending budget. In this regard, the U.S. president threatened that if Spain does not meet the 5% of GDP required by Washington, he will break off trade relations. He also criticized Madrid for imposing limits on the use of U.S. military bases on Spanish territory. And now we go to Venezuela. 2 months ago, on January 3rd, Venezuelan's constitutional president Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Cilia Flores were kidnapped by U.S. military forces and taken to U.S. territory. The military operation violated Venezuela's sovereignty and the immunity of a head of state and resulted in the killing of over 100 civilians. The action was immediately condemned by the international community, including the United Nations General Assembly. Countries around the world, such as China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba, raised their voices in solidarity with the Bolivarian nation and its leader, which for years were targets of U.S. aggression. Also, Venezuelan people continue mobilizing to demand the release of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Cilia Flores. 2 months after their kidnapping, mobilizations and protests are held in Caracas to demand their immediate release and Venezuelan sovereignty. The participants in the large protest assure that they will remain in the streets permanently for peace, freedom, and the sovereignty of Venezuela. Also, a flight with 130 Venezuelan migrants arrived on Tuesday in Caracas from Miami, the United States, as part of the Back to the Homeland government plan. The group, which included 101 men, 21 women, 4 teenagers, and 4 children, landed at Simón Bolívar International Airport in Maiquetía. As usual, the Ministry of Interior, Justice and Peace, Diosdado Cabello, activated the citizen security and health protocols upon the group's arrival before they joined their families. The initiative, promoted by President Nicolás Maduro and acting President Delcy Rodriguez, reaffirms the Venezuelan government's commitment to the safe and dignified return of those who decided to return to their homeland. It also seeks to protect the right to family reunification and national sovereignty. Also, Petróleos de Venezuela announced that it has signed supply contracts with companies that sell oil and derivatives for the United States market. In a statement, PDVSA expressed that Venezuela reiterates its commitment to the stability of the international energy market and affirms its position as a reliable supplier, contributing to the balance necessary to guarantee global energy security. The Venezuelan nation reiterates the need for a sanction-free hydrocarbon industry to promote national production and strengthen international trade. And we say Venezuela as the nation denied fake news about an alleged U.S. accusation of corruption against acting President Delcy Rodriguez. The British agency Reuters reported without proof that the United States is preparing an alleged accusation against the leader for alleged corruption and also money laundering crimes. Through his social media accounts, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Todd Blanche, also rejected reports that the charges also the Department of Justice was preparing new criminal charges, putting an end to speculation about the use of legal proceedings as means of political pressure on the Venezuelan government. And in Peru, at least 41 deaths have been reported as a result of the heavy rains affecting several regions of the country. The Peruvian Ministry of Health also reported more than 70 people affected by the heavy rains that have hit several regions of the country, with a particular impact on the southern department of Arequipa. For his part, the Deputy Minister of Health, Leonardo Rojas, specified that nationwide, about 640 health centers suffered damage and 4 of them were left inoperational. Authorities also warned of an increase in cases of dengue and respiratory diseases and will therefore deploy medical brigades to the most affected areas. And we have a second short break coming up before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page, also activate the notification button. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. And Colombia is getting ready for the upcoming March 8th legislative elections, which are expected to serve as a barometer for the presidential elections next May. The government of the South American nation is working to guarantee citizen safety during the election day on Sunday, with a deployment of more than 200,000 uniformed personnel throughout 13,000 polling stations in 127 municipalities. The voters will elect 103 seats in the nation's Senate and 183 in the House of Representatives out of members of both chambers of Colombian Congress for the 2026-2030 term from more than 3,200 registered candidates. The seats in both chambers will be mainly disputed by 2 major antagonistic forces, the Historic Pact and the Democratic Center. Now we go to Cuba, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla, reiterated his country's willingness to collaborate and establish bilateral relations with any country in the world. In a post on the social network X, Parrilla stated, "As a sovereign country, Cuba has the willingness and capacity to develop economic and trade relations with any nation. This is how international trade should be developed, without the government of a powerful nation having the prerogative or the capacity to dictate how and with which nations another state can develop its foreign trade." And in other topics, President Claudia Sheinbaum denied that remittances sent to Mexico are used for money laundering. During this Tuesday's morning press conference, the head of state assured that she has not received any international observations regarding evidence of the use of remittances for illegal activities in the country. She added that the Financial Action Task Force will evaluate transactions by past governments to review possible observations. In addition, the president emphasized the importance of investigating money transfers but refused to consider remittances as a tool for money laundering.
In any case, these money transfers need to be investigated. But if they are no longer remittances, which are small amounts of funds sent monthly to families, then there is an obligation to investigate any transfer from the U.S. to Mexico of a very large value. However, that would no longer be a remittance, but a resource transfer. The remittance is the term used for Mexican families living in the U.S. who send money to support their families. The others are resource transfers that also exist. Transfers from the United States to Mexico are probably in the millions because we have a trade agreement where cash is not paid, but everything in import and export evidently is. There are funds from one place to another in the country through companies or individuals, but those transfers are analyzed in a different manner.
In Argentina, human rights organizations denounced the restrictions imposed on former President Cristina FERNANDEZ de Kirchner during her house arrest. From a press conference held at the National Congress, the organizations demanded that the Federal Oral Court review the reasonableness of the restrictions imposed on the former president, describing them as arbitrary. Human rights organizations denounce a violation of the principles of equality before the law and non-discrimination, pointing out that the limitations imposed on the former president do not even apply to individuals convicted of crimes against humanity. In this regard, organizations condemn the current visiting regime, which imposes limits on the number of visitors, reduces visiting times, and requires visitors to apply in advance. And on Tuesday, the Federal Oral Court of Rio Gallegos started the trial of 4 former Argentine Navy members accused of sinking the Ara San Juan in 2017. During the opening, one of the judges read the indictment, a procedural document that describes the facts, the evidence, and legal framework. This marked the formal beginning of the oral proceedings, which will last until July of next year. The names of the accused are Rear Admiral Luis Enrique López Maceo, Captain Claudio Villamide, Captain Héctor Alonso, and Commander Hugo Miguel Correa. They are charged with breach of duty, omission of official duties, and aggravated manslaughter. The oral phase of the trial is being held every other week from Monday to Thursday. Costa Rica makes history with the creation of the first symphony orchestra comprised exclusively of women. This initiative by youth Jorge Rodriguez Vives highlighted the importance of this project in creating opportunities in the artistic field. The Confama Animation Festival will be held in Antioquia, Colombia, with more than 40 activities, including animated film screenings, concerts, and master classes focused on biodiversity. This event, which will take place from March 12th to 15th, will present 3 films nominated for the 2026 Oscars, including Amélie and The Secrets of the Rain Arco and Zootopia 2nd. The program will feature a prominent academic guests such as Michael Dudok, The Wit, and Shelo Loureiro, as well as musical performances by Superlitia and the new Colombian singing stories. In addition, the El Power animation market will bring together 42 companies from the sector and offer networking opportunities. Meanwhile, preparations for the 15th edition of the International Ballet Competition continue in Russia. The event will take place in the historic setting of the State Academic Bolshoi Theater in Moscow. The 2026 edition will be dedicated to the memory of choreographer Yuri Grigorovich, artistic director and jury member of the project for more than 5 decades. This year, the president of the jury will be Svetlana Sakharova, prima ballerina of the Bolshoi Theater and interim rector of the State Academy of Choreography. Applications for participation will be accepted on the official competition website until March 20th. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.
Scan our QR code to access the microsite Venezuela Resists Freedom and Sovereignty. This portal presents the details of the kidnapping of President Nicolás Maduro and the First Lady Cilia Flores. There, you can consult the complete information, the detailed timeline, and the record of the massive international mobilization in defense of the truth and their immediate release. Additionally, through the Letters for Freedom section, you can send a message of support. You just need to enter your name, full email address, select your country, and write your message. Enter now and be part of Venezuela Resists. Only on teleSUR.